20 years ago, I served a 2-year Mormon mission for my church in Mexico. That's me, on a donkey. My parents were very proud, and it was a labor of love. 20 years later, I was doing backflips in 5-inch heels, 8 shows a week on Broadway, in the Cyndi Lauper musical, Kinky Boots. My parents were very proud. And it was a labor of love. So, what happened in those 20 years that drove my life in such different directions? Passion. Life is unscripted, and passion can shape our choices and create change for us and the world. But before I was in Mexico or flipping on Broadway, I was a kid with a lot of energy. I could not sit still. My mom used to say my spirit was too big for my body, and that I would enter a room spirit first, which I took as a compliment. My sister and I would create tirelessly in the backyard with the sliding glass doors as our mirrors. And one weekend, we invited all of the neighborhood kids and our family, and we performed our Mormon version of Grease. And the crowd went mild. I'll never forget the first time I actually got onto a stage. It was in a community production of Bye Bye Birdie. And when I got out under those lights and a dark room of people started laughing at things I was doing and listening to what we were saying, it surged this unstoppable neural pathway into my soul, and passion was born. I had drank the dream juice. Where did it come from? I do not know. But I know that it was the first thing I'd think about when I woke up in the morning and the last thing I fantasized about before I went to bed. That's passion. It's a call to action. In high school, theater's not the coolest hobby, but it was my thing, and I loved my theater friends. How many people in this room were in a high school musical or play? Raise your hands. Think back to that time. Putting on a musical is a unique bonding experience, scary for some, exciting for others. But in the end, there's a feeling of accomplishment and teamwork. We pulled this big thing together. I recently went back to my high school and saw a production of Legally Blonde. Now, I was in the original Broadway company, so seeing that show on a stage where so many of my passions emerged from was a blast. The first thing I did was run spirit first to hug my theater teacher, Emily Gates, because this is a woman who created space for me to be me and gave me tools to create and play within my passions with nothing but encouragement behind it. So all hail arts educators and teachers everywhere. And as I saw these kids on this stage having so much fun doing their show, I thought, as far as happiness goes, I've never really been any happier on any other stage than I was there. When you're passionate about something, you're happy to do it anywhere. Something else I was passionate about was doing the right thing, being good, especially when it came to my eternal salvation and the welfare of my soul. So when I was 19, I decided the best thing to do for my religious convictions was to serve a mission. For theater people, that's like the live version of the Book of Mormon, the musical. And I say that my mission was a labor of love because I loved the Mexican people and serving among them. And I will never forget the valuable lessons my 19 to 21-year-old self learned about sacrifice and discipline and hard work. And there was plenty of labor, from knocking on strangers' doors to learning and speaking Spanish to riding bikes and getting chased by dogs on those bikes, the fun stuff. And one of the lessons I still hold so true to this day from my mission was the concept of belief. When you truly believe something, you instantly have leverage on yourself to create action. And it's that action that differentiates the doers from the dreamers. When I got home from my mission, I was at a crossroads. And those roads were labeled Mormon Avenue and Gay Street. I knew I was gay, but I loved my church and religion, and I felt very split. and my beliefs needed to evolve so that I could find balance. And I was so fearful and shameful to come out and live my truths. And I mentioned fear because living in fear is the opposite of living with passion. But the truth is we have a choice about fear. We can either let it block us or fuel us. We can master the way we use fear. So I decided that in order to be authentically happy, I needed to live truthfully. And I guess you can say my beliefs did evolve because I believe I'm essentially good and that I have gifts that I was meant to create beauty with and open up passion for other people. Now, if someone had told me then that 20 years later, I would perform on the Tony Awards and run an arts organization and a choreography business, I probably would have smacked them across the face in outright disbelief. What would our younger selves think of us now? So my road to Broadway was kind of a fluke. I was studying musical theater at Brigham Young University. Friends got wind of a audition for Miss Saigon on Broadway in Salt Lake, and I didn't want to go because I didn't think I had a shot. Between my bleach blonde hair and my baby face, I looked more like a Backstreet Boy than I did an American GI in Miss Saigon. But I went, and I was terrified, and I sang a little and danced a little, and I didn't have a headshot or resume. So you can imagine my disbelief when 3 days later I got a call in my college dorm that I had been cast in Miss Saigon on Broadway, and I started rehearsal in 2 weeks. So I packed up my stuff and made a graduation plan with my professors and moved to the Big Apple, fueled by equal parts passion and fear. Now, Miss Saigon was one of the first Broadway shows I saw with my dad on a trip to New York. I knew this show, and I was a fan. The fact that I was about to be on that stage wearing those costumes was mind-boggling to me. There's nothing like a Broadway debut that's more thrilling for a theater nerd like me. See, I didn't just play drag queens on Broadway. And there's nothing more disappointing than a closing notice from producers. After its 10-year run, Miss Saigon closed very quickly after I joined, but I got 4 months of flipping on that stage, which was a dream come true. And then I was thrust into the grind of show business. Early morning auditions in long lines, dancing all day, every day, rent, not the show, actual money to live. And the reality that as actors, we deal with more rejection in one day than most people do in a lifetime. It is hard to hear no day after day and find the strength to come back for more. So why do we do it? Where's the love in all the labor? Is any of this worth it? 2 things. I think when it comes from your heart, the hard stuff doesn't seem so hard. And ultimately, the child inside of all of us, whose spirit is too big for our bodies, has no choice but to respond to the call of passion. And theater has a unique way of affecting people. It's different than books and TV and film. It's happening in that moment, in that room, and will never happen again the same way. And it's special because it's a human connection. We have a chance to tell stories in new ways and shine a different light on the human experience. And when you go on that journey, you're more compassionate and empathetic at the end. An example of this was when I was still in Kinky Boots, Wednesday matinees, oftentimes they would bus in retirement groups of people. These are people who don't see men dressed as women very often. And there was a little confusion and resistance mixed with fear on their faces, just like me watching the news lately. But by the end of the show, during the big finale, Just Be Who You Want to Be, I saw everyone clapping along, fist pumping the air, because at some point in that dark theater, the story we were telling connected with them, and they got invested, and they started rooting for the characters. The power theater has to change people before your eyes is magical. My dad always told me, do what you love, and the money will follow. Still waiting for the money part of that wisdom. But I've never felt like my work is a job. When you're excited about something, you show up for yourself and others. You perform better, you work harder, you complain less, because you believe in what you're doing. And theater is constantly evolving. The way we're telling these stories is changing and morphing all the time. There's this little show you've probably never heard of called Hamilton. Hamilton took a story everybody knows and gave audiences an experience with it that they didn't expect. Live theater is about the rush of being in the room where it happened. I'm not going to rap, and I cannot help you with tickets. But I can't wait to see the stories that our children put on stage about us. I know we're giving them a lot of material. Obviously, New York City is not the only place where good theater is created. I actually believe that people who create good theater outside of a Broadway or professional budget are some of the most inventive people in the industry. But with limited resources for the arts, we all need to get creative. So after 15 years of 8 shows a week, I decided to expand my passions into other aspects of the business. Now, when I was young and rewinding VHS tapes to memorize any dance I could, I thought how cool it would be if Gene Kelly or Bob Fosse or Jerome Robbins could jump out of the TV and just break down the moves to West Side Story for me, which led me to think, what if high school productions could learn and use iconic dances from the original creators? So my mentor and now business partner, director-choreographer Jerry Mitchell, and I created a resource, the Original Production, that offers licensing rights of original Broadway choreography to high schools and colleges and community theaters, a digital bridge to Broadway. Why not use inventive technology to share artistic information? This is how it works. Technology, useful information, video. Okay, here we go. Here it is. So this is Hairspray Live that Jerry Mitchell choreographed. Jennifer Hudson's on our videos. We take professional choreography, where the choreographer breaks down the steps on our platform. That's Jerry Mitchell, Tony Award winner. Which is then taught to a high school cast by their choreographers or students, and then ends up on their stage for their performance and for their audiences. Thank you. It's them. Now, our goal is to invite these directors and choreographers to collaborate and integrate their vision with the original creators. And we're a new company and we're growing, but I feel such a distinct connection to this whole concept because I know so much. I know that this kid would have freaked out if he had something like this when he was trying to choreograph Grease in the backyard with his sister. And it's kind of mind-boggling how this hasn't been done before. My high school used it to do Legally Blonde. Here in Traverse City, Senior West High School used it to do their Legally Blonde. And even a performing arts school in Bangkok, Thailand is using the Original Production to choreograph Hairspray. Because dance has no borders or boundaries. So art is passed down from generation to generation. This is how it's always happened. We honor those who paved the way for us as we work to pave the way for others. Ultimately, there's nothing more rewarding than living with passion. Then the ultimate reward of living with passion is the gratification of giving back and contribution. 10 years ago, I started teaching workshops for schools visiting New York City. They'd see a Broadway show, and I would talk to them about what they learned. Fans of Legally Blonde, for example, could bend and snap with the pros. There was a picture of that. But these workshops actually opened my eyes to the greater need of quality arts education in this country. There are a lot of people who share the passion of theater and don't always have access or an outlet for it. So my friend and actress, singer, performer, unicorn Laura Bell Bundy and I created a program and partnered with other performing arts centers all over the country. And this program gives young artists the opportunity to explore their talents with professional mentors. I believe that we're creating more well-rounded human beings by giving them an experience in the arts. And no matter what career you pursue, the skills you learn in theater will serve you. Today, we all live in tech bubbles, and it's easy to feel lost in the noise of social media. Theater gives us a voice, and feeling heard is so essential for developing confidence. And it's always refreshing for my teaching artists to be reminded where passion was born through the eyes of young dreamers. There's nothing like the risk of putting yourself out there to validate self-belief. That's Traverse City. And there's a lot of talent here. And I know that sports and a lot of other activities produce the same results, but for the kids who respond to theater this way, it should be made available. Accountability, fun, play, and ownership of art is invaluable for young people. And a place to practice those passions should be made available. Ultimately, every kid deserves to feel like a star. This relates to adults as well. And we can complain and blame all we want about the role that our government holds in the arts today, like that 0.1% of the entire national spending budget goes to the National Endowment of the Arts, an agency that's in jeopardy of just being obliterated altogether. However, after all the blaming and crying and eating sheet cake, we still have to take responsibility for our ownership in art. Even outside of the arts, every one of us has passion that we can tap into inside of us that can make a difference around us. And this is not a new concept. Throughout history, anything innovative has been brought about because of passion. From learning how to use fire and collect wood to iPhones and planes and x-rays and cancer treatments, all these things were brought about because normal people were fueled by passion and fearlessly pursued their dreams to bring to the world something unique and special. I love the theme of this TEDx, Awake and Aware. How can I awaken to myself and be aware of my passions? And how can I use what's inside of me to create a better future? What's the story we're telling? I repeatedly tell my students, there's only one you. Nobody has your voice. Nobody can dance or move like you do. Nobody can write with your point of view or tell your story quite the way you can convey your truths. You're a gift. So don't hide your uniqueness or get absorbed into what other people are doing. Your passion is your life performance, and you're the star, and it's going to affect people. And the world needs your gift more than ever. I love the final message of Kinky Boots. You change the world when you change your mind. I believe we're capable of creating change. It starts with passion. So let your spirits be too big for your own bodies and overwhelm us with all of you. Life is unscripted, so tell your story. Thank you.